Welcome to my new Trump versus Harris prediction, so let's start. And there we go, so as you can see there's many new additions. For example, both Iowa and Ohio and the 2nd District of Maine become safe states because if we go back to 2016 for example, I think that Trump in his third run would be able to make Iowa a safe state, while for Ohio, I will say would be extremely close between likely and safe margin. I could even see Ohio being something like 11% and being a likely state for Donald Trump, but as of now, I think he wins here by a safe margin. Against Harris, of course. While for the 2nd District of Maine, I think he would do slightly better than 2016. I think he does have more appeal in the Maine region in 2024 compared to 2016, and I see him winning here by around 12%, 13%, and yeah. And now for the likely states, so I'm going to talk about the first likely states are of course going to be likely states, since they barely dropped from a safe state to a likely state. So for Oregon, Illinois, and New Jersey, of course they're going to vote Democrat. Don't worry about that. So I think that if we go to 2020 and 2016, it was 16%, 17%, and 15% as well. So with lower turnout, you would expect these to go something like 2016. I think Harris would win here by, I think, slightly more than 11%. I think 11.5%. I think her being from the West Coast could help, and it could also not help, but whatever. While for Illinois, I think Harris, she simply doesn't have the numbers and the approval rating right now, so she would not get the turnout as other candidates would, like Biden or I don't know. While for New Jersey, it would be around 11.75%, I think. In 2020, it was only 15.9, even with all the turnout by the Democrats. So with Harris, I see her doing a slightly worse in this region. So for the other likely states, so let's go to Colorado. So Colorado, it's going to be likely, I think, in the worst case scenario for the Democrats, it's going to drop down to like, I don't know, like 11% or 10%. I just don't see it dropping below. While for the other states, so let's go to Texas and Florida. So Texas and Florida would of course be likely states in this scenario. Trump would win here, especially Florida would become a likely state because he's from there and he would get even bigger turnout than 2020. Would be easier to call Harris a socialist than compared to Biden, who's more moderate, you could say. And he would win here by around 6, 7, or even 8%. While for Texas, I think you would see it go back to similar to 2016 margins, around anywhere from 7 to 10% in my opinion. It could be anywhere from that, but against Harris, probably 8 to 11% in my opinion. So for another likely state, so let's go to Virginia. So Virginia, you could make an easy case that it would drop down to lean. I would not be surprised if that would happen. I think if Harris does really bad in the election in 2024, you could make it easily see it go back to maybe like 2012 margins. I think it worst case scenario for Harris, she would win here by like 4.5. But as of now, I think she would do slightly better than Clinton did. I think she wins by around the same margin that Clinton did over there. So, while for North Carolina, even though Harris is African American, I think Trump would win here by a likely margin, barely. I just don't see Harris having the turnout that Biden had, for example. I think even Biden was able to do well, even with all the coalition he was able to build from the McCain Republicans and some even rural or suburban appeal that Clinton did not have in 2016. I see Trump doing better than in 2016, and I just don't see Harris doing well in the Sun Belt region. In my opinion, I think she would not do. I mean, she wouldn't do well in any major region in the country. So yeah. And yeah, so just let me do this for a second. I'm gonna talk about the lean states in a second. So for the lean states, so let's talk about let's go with New Mexico. So New Mexico, as I was saying before, North Carolina, I think she would not have really any decent Sunbelt appeal. I think Harris would really do horrible with Hispanics compared to Biden, and even Clinton, she would do worse. I think you would see Harris win here by even worse margins than Clinton. I think she would probably do around 4.5%. I think that with Donald Trump, he does really well at getting Hispanic turnout. But even then, there's no way I see Donald Trump winning New Mexico unless Harris has like 10% approval rating. While for Wisconsin, let's go to Wisconsin. So I think Donald Trump, with the state of Wisconsin trending to the right quite easily, I think Donald Trump would do even better than 2016. I think he would win here by, with the current approval rating that Kamala has, I think he would win here by around 2%, maybe 3% as things stand. And yeah, I just don't see Harris or Democrats having a good chance in Wisconsin unless something big happens. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, let's go to Arizona. So Arizona is an interesting state in my opinion. It did flip for Biden in 2020, but I think it would be, as of now, it only flipped by 0.3%. I think it was an anomaly similar to like 1996 or 1996. And I think that with Harris, even though the state is, I don't think it's trending neither to the left nor to the right. And I see Harris just not having the numbers here, and Donald Trump easily wins here, similar to like 2016 by a margin of 3 or even 4% in my opinion. While for Pennsylvania, back in 2020, I think Donald Trump would win here quite easily against Harris. In 2020, Biden was only able to get 1.2% of the vote, and I expect Harris to simply not have the support that Biden had. And I see Donald Trump winning here by around 1.75% to 2.75%. I think Wisconsin probably votes to the right of Pennsylvania, but as of now, lean state for Donald Trump. And let's go to Minnesota. So this is another interesting one. I think you could make an easy case that it would drop to tilt. I would not be surprised. I think that is pretty plausible. That could happen in the future. If Harris gets her numbers even lower, it could easily become tilt. But as of now, I see Minnesota being a lean state. I think that even though they vote by a likely margin with Biden by 7.1%, it would probably go to around 2016 margins. I should say Kamala Harris would win the state of Minnesota by a similar margin to Hillary Clinton. I think Harris wins here by around, give or take, 1.25% to 2.5%, even in this scenario as of now. Moving on, so let's go to Georgia. So Georgia, it's really a toss-up between a tilt margin and a lean margin. I think both of them could happen, depending on how hard the shift to the left within African Americans and the African American turnout is. But as of now, looking at the map from 2020, the turnout that Biden was able to have, I simply just don't see Harris getting the numbers that he got. I think it will be a combination of both 2016 and 2020. I think it wouldn't be likely. It would be around, in my opinion, around or 0.75% to 2.75%. But I see it, probably being a lean margin between Donald Trump against Kamala Harris as of now. And for the final lean state, I'm gonna talk about Michigan. I think Michigan in this scenario, with the current economic issues, with the Rust Belt appeal that Donald Trump has, alongside the bellwether counties we saw back in the 2021 governor's race, going for Donald Trump by a decent margin, the bellwether county that does predict the Rust Belt quite well, I think Michigan will vote by a bigger margin than 2016. I think that as of now, I just don't see Harris having it a decent turnout, and I just don't see her getting the numbers simply. Trump is gonna come back for his third time running with experience and everything, and I just don't see Harris being able to unite the Democratic Party. I mean, even the DNC and other media are trying to dethrone Harris by putting Pete Buttigieg more on the board and stuff like that. So yeah, as I was saying, let's start off with Nevada. Yeah, with Nevada, of course. You could easily make it that Nevada would be a lean state. I think in this scenario, as of now, Trump just barely loses on Nevada being a lean state. I see Nevada being 0.75%, maybe 0.9%. I think it would just be below the lean margin, but I would not be surprised if Harris turnouts and I should say her approval goes even more down, it's going to go to a lean margin, but as seen by like 2004 levels, maybe something like that. But as of now, tilt margin. And for the last states and districts, so let's go to the 2nd district of Nebraska. I see Kamala Harris barely winning here by a tilt margin. I think that it's getting to that point in which she simply would not get the turnout, and we would see a combination of 2020 alongside 2016. Still, she barely wins here, but as of now, as I was saying, so I think for one of the last ones, so I think Maine at large, Trump barely misses out on flipping Maine at large. I think Harris, with her approval rating, even at that point, barely wins Maine at large by around 0.5%. While for New Hampshire, I think Donald Trump, looking at the approval ratings and the momentum that Donald Trump does in fact have, and it's mostly around the fact that Harris doesn't have that, I see New Hampshire being a tilt state. I think it would just be the opposite of 2016, and I just don't see Harris having the turnout, and Donald Trump wins New Hampshire by a tilt margin of 0.25 to 0.5%. And as you can see, Donald Trump wins with 316 electoral votes, while Kamala Harris has 222 electoral votes. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.